Good afternoon, everyone. I thought since today is the solemnity of the Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, that I would offer a brief reflection. I promise it's not a full-length Wednesday homily, brief reflection. And the reason you know it's not a full-length homily is I don't have a large glass mason jar filled with water. I have this little tiny cup of coffee, which looks so small in my hands, I'm now seeing. I don't have a student to hand it off to. I'm just sort of putting it out in space, and then it disappears now. But I thought I would offer just a little reflection. This is from Luke chapter 1, from today's gospel, the gospel of the Annunciation. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a town of Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man named Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. And coming to her, he said, "Hail, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was greatly troubled at what was said and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. Then the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. Behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall name him Jesus. He will be great and will be called Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give him the throne of David his father, and he will rule over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." But Mary said to the angel, "How can this be, since I have no relations with a man?" As I went over that text, I was struck by Mary's question. How can this be? How can this be? And I was also struck with how it's not the question of her relative Zechariah, who, when he learns the news of his wife's miraculous birth, he doesn't say, "How can this be?" He says, "How can I know this?" In other words, prove it to me that this is the case. But that's not what Mary says. She doesn't say, "How can I know this?" She says, "How can this be?" In other words, Mary's question means, I trust that you will do this, but how? I trust that God will be faithful to his promises. I trust that he'll be faithful to his promises to my people. I trust that his word will come true, but how will he do it? I can't understand. I can't fathom how he will be faithful, and I know he will. What's interesting is we know at this point that Mary is already filled with grace. And so this question doesn't come from a place of emptiness, but a place of overfilling of God's grace, of an overflowing, an abundance of his grace in her. And it's from that grace comes this question, how can this be? This is our question too. If we're honest, for many of us, this is the question we have. How are we going to come back from this? How are we going to come back to worshiping God in the house of God with the people of God? How are we going to come back to having class in a classroom? How are we going to come back to things as simple as enjoying good food and drink with good friends, good conversations out in public? How are our dioceses? How's our diocese going to come back? How are our parishes, our congregations, our schools, our communities? How are they going to come back? If we're honest, these are our questions. And Mary was filled with grace, and yet she dared to ask her question, how can this be? We shouldn't be afraid to come to God in boldness, in prayer, and ask our questions as well. How are you going to do this? How are you going to bring us back from this? Mary dared to ask her question. And the answer she got was that nothing short of God himself coming and acting will accomplish this. And that's the answer for us as well. We won't be able to restore our own sense of normalcy. We won't be able to bring ourselves back. We won't be able to bring life back. Nothing short of God acting will bring an end to all of this chaos, to this crisis. And I know I speak for many when I say that we're hoping and in hope, praying and waiting upon the Lord to act and to bring us back to the place where we can worship Him together, where we can enjoy each other together. I know you're hoping and praying for that as well. God bless, and we'll see you soon.